Hello all and welcome to another episode of Social Psychology Explained. Today we're going to look at male allies at work. Gender equality supportive men reduce negative underrepresentation effects among women by Moser and Branscombe. It is currently in press, which means the journal, Social Psychological and Personality Science, has accepted it for publication, but it's still in the backlog of articles waiting to be published officially. As always, if you'd like to read the article for yourself, check the description down below for a citation and link. But before we get into the article, I would like to ask you, kind viewer, to help me appease the algorithm gnomes by liking and sharing this video, leaving a comment down below, and subscribing to the channel. I think it goes without saying that in STEM, women are vastly underrepresented in the workplace, which researchers tend to attribute to gender stereotypes and the way they form self-fulfilling prophecies. Because women aren't stereotyped as being the sciencey type, they tend to be discouraged from entering STEM fields, and when they do, they face discrimination. As such, even those few who do get into STEM often leave to do other things. The simplest solution to prevent gender-based discrimination in the workplace is to just hire more women, and also to give women other female role models to look up to while at work. But that is far easier said than done. There is a dearth of women to hire and to serve as role models, so we need other solutions as well to help women succeed in STEM. Prior research has shown that male allyship can be a particularly potent source of support. For example, one study found that women who experienced unfair hiring decisions experienced higher self-esteem and performed better on a stereotypically male task when the hiring decision was labeled as sexist by a man compared to when it was not addressed. As such, Moser and Branscombe conducted 3 studies to examine what effect a male ally might have in getting women in STEM to feel more included. For study 1, the authors recruited 260 white women through a site called Cloud Research, which is one of the many platforms that help researchers recruit participants for studies. This number was based on a power analysis, which is good, but they had to exclude some people for failing attention checks, so their final sample was 241. Now, I understand why they didn't want to include women of color, since race can potentially confound your results when you just want to focus on the gender aspect, but it does limit your generalizability. I personally tend to prefer greater external validity at the cost of lower internal validity, but this is an ongoing debate within the scientific community. I should probably do a stats and methods short on the subject at some point. My solution to this conundrum would be to include everyone regardless of ethnicity, and then control for it when performing your analyses. The downside to this is that you need to recruit more participants to have adequate power to detect any effect ethnicity might have. I should also note that usually when we do power analyses to determine how large a sample we need, it's usually best practice to over-recruit to account for attrition, but if funds are tight, sometimes you have to make do. Participants completed a survey in which they first completed a questionnaire on items related to feminist and gender identification to prime them for the manipulation. Participants were then told to imagine they were hired by a chemistry company, and the manipulation then consisted of a slideshow of their new imaginary workplace and future co-workers. They were randomly assigned to view a workplace with a gender-balanced ratio or a male-dominated gender ratio, and to view a workplace with a male ally or without an ally. For outcome measures, the authors used a collection of items from a previous study which ostensibly measures sense of belonging in the workplace. This measure had 2 components: isolation and support from coworkers. I've done this rant before, but it really isn't good to use ad hoc measures. Psychology research in general depends on rigorously validated measures to ensure that we are measuring what we think we're measuring. New, unvalidated measures, or even ones that are adapted from validated measures, have not gone through that process, so we don't know if they can truly be relied upon. This case is especially troublesome because they adapted an already adapted ad hoc measure from another paper. All that said, if a peer-reviewed and validated measure doesn't already exist, sometimes you have to make do. The authors also included manipulation checks, which are measures to make sure the participants were actually paying attention to the manipulation. If it turns out they aren't, you want to exclude them from your analyses. And now results. All graphs are of my own creation based on information provided in the paper, and all error bars are 95% confidence intervals of the mean. To start with, they found a main effect of ally presence, but no significant interaction. While this is good, I find it suspicious that they didn't report any statistics on whether their participant pool noticed whether the gender ratio was balanced or not. For isolation, the authors found no significant main effects of gender composition or presence of an ally. However, they did find a marginally non-significant interaction such that having a male ally potentially mitigates the isolation one feels in a gender unbalanced workplace. When looking at support, there were again no main effects of gender ratio or presence of a male ally, though there was a significant interaction which found that individuals who were exposed to an unequal gender ratio with a male ally were statistically indistinguishable from those who saw a gender-equal workplace. On to Study 2. For this study, the authors sought to extend their previous findings by the inclusion of black women to see if the presence of race allyship might perform similarly to gender allyship. As such, they conducted a power analysis based on the results from Study 1 and then recruited 200 white and 200 black women through Prolific, a platform similar to MTurk which allows researchers to recruit participants for their studies and then to pay said participants through the platform. In this case, each participant was paid $1.50. The survey was similar to that of Study 1, but this time participants were randomly shown a scene with a gender imbalanced workplace which included either a black male ally, a white male ally, or no ally. This resulted in a 2x3 factorial design with participant race on one axis and ally presence on the second axis. In addition to the measures used in Study 1, Study 2 featured other adapted ad hoc measures, which were in turn adapted from existent validated measures. They used a 6-item measure for anticipated workplace hostility, and a 4-item measure for anticipated workplace respect. They also included a manipulation check, which fortunately checked out. When looking at perceived respect, a main effect for ally presence was found, but no main effect of participant race or an interaction. Similar results were found when looking at perceived support. When looking at perceived isolation, it's a case of once more same as before. And the pattern continued to hold when looking at perceptions of a hostile work environment. Taken in sum, these results suggest that the presence of an ally does reduce the negative perceptions of the workplace, and when the authors conducted pairwise comparisons, they found no significant difference between the presence of a white ally or a black ally. However, racial underrepresentation was not shown in the photos of the hypothetical workplace, so the race of the ally might matter in that context. On to the final study of the paper. For this study, the authors sought to examine how the presence of a male ally might compare to the presence of a female ally. They again conducted a power analysis based on the results of the previous 2 studies, which determined they would need to recruit at least 378 participants, so they recruited 435 women who worked in STEM using Prolific. Participants were paid $1.50 for their time. This study mimicked the other 2 in design, though this time there was a 2x2 factorial design, with the presence of an ally on one axis and the gender of the target coworker on the other. In addition to all the measures included in Study 2, Study 3 included a measure of perceived normative gender equality that appears to be created specifically for this study, as well as a measure of identity safety, again adapted from a measure that another paper adapted from a validated measure. Once again, the authors included a manipulation check, which did indeed check out. And now results. When looking at perceived respect, the authors found a main effect of ally presence, a main effect of target gender, and a significant interaction. These results suggest that having an ally helps, but it helps even more so if the ally is male. In analyzing perceived normative gender equality, they found a marginally significant effect of ally presence, a significant main effect of target gender, and a significant interaction. Perceptions were better when a male ally was present, and the other 3 conditions did not differ. Perceived identity safety showed 2 significant main effects and a marginal interaction. Participants were more likely to perceive that their coworkers would accept them when there was a male ally present than in any of the other conditions, which did not significantly differ. When looking at perceived support, there were once again 2 significant main effects and a marginally non-significant interaction. Participants expected to receive more support when they were shown a male ally than a female ally, and expected to receive more support when shown a female ally than when not shown an ally. When looking at perceived isolation, Moser and Branscombe found 2 significant main effects and a non-significant interaction. Despite having a non-significant interaction, they conducted pairwise comparisons which showed that participants felt less isolated when shown a male ally compared to the other 3 conditions which did not differ. And when looking at the results for hostile work environment, the authors found a significant main effect of ally manipulation, but a non-significant main effect of target gender and a non-significant interaction. Despite these non-significant results, the authors once again conducted pairwise comparisons and found that participants felt the work environment was less hostile when shown a male ally compared to the other 3 conditions which did not differ. So in sum, when taken at face value, these results seem to suggest that the presence of a male ally might ameliorate, at least to some extent, the effect of unequal gender ratios in the workplace. However, I'm really hesitant to stand wholeheartedly on these results due to the fact that the authors did not include a single peer-reviewed and validated measure. If they were to include a fourth study which featured a couple measures with demonstrated validity, and that study replicated these results, I would happily say we have good evidence for the benefits of male allyship, but to my knowledge, no replication with such measures has yet been conducted. I am particularly concerned with the results from Study 3, since the interactions, even when significant, had quite low effect sizes, even by social psychology standards. Now, it could be that with better measures, those interactions might explain more variance, but for now, all I'm willing to say is that allies are good. Looking to future studies, I really want an attempted replication with better measures. If that study gets significant results, then we can look to potential modifiers of the benefits of male allyship. Well, that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and if you've got a paper you'd like me to look at next, or more thoughts on this one, let me know in the comments.